Welcome back to the garden.
I have seen gods fly.
Last night, went and saw Black Panther.
I've seen men build weapons that I couldn't even imagine.
In a word, I think I might begin each segment with in a word, just to kind of get the nutshell out there, so you know my contention straight away, and then you can stop the video and fuck off to something else.
I've seen aliens drop from the sky.
Yeah.
But anyway, in a word, Black Panther is dynamic.
But I have never seen anything like this. How much more are you hiding?
Hold up.
But before we get to that, I just want to touch on a tragedy that happened last week. I reacted to the Han Solo trailer right on time. I reviewed Cloverfield Paradox. And then we listed the top 5 space thrillers. Had everything edited, ready to go, press send, export, and I lost everything. After I got over that, I managed to crawl out of my cave and I saw two movies which you can't get more opposite. One was about a privileged white genius who makes dresses.
Stop! Are you sent here to ruin my evening?
And the other one was Black Panther. So let's just talk about Black Panther.
My son, it is your time.
Show me my respect and bow.
I want to try and get this done before it's 8 o'clock and I've got to go to work. I've never seen a representation of Africa. My black brothers, I've never seen such an incredible representation of their indigenous culture.
And it is your time.
The indigenous culture of man. By the way, the hype for this film was at like gargantuan levels.
You know, I've always liked that word, gargantuan.
Gargantuan, definitely gargantuan. People were talking about this being the next Dark Knight. It is 10 years. 10 years since the great Nolan film came out. And they were talking about Michael Jordan, not that Michael Jordan, so this Michael Jordan, as a villain to rival the greatness of our dearly departed. Having seen it, I don't think it's definitely, it is the best comic book film, in my opinion, since The Dark Knight. And that's a big enough call, because that means it's in 10 years of Marvel dominance, I think it's the best one they've done. It stands alone. It doesn't need... It fits seamlessly into the rest of it. It justifies where it's been, because that was my biggest issue going into this, is where the fuck has Wakanda been? Like, you know, like with all this other shit going on, with Ultron, with like no mention of Wakanda. And so you're wondering, where the fuck have you guys been? It deals with that. That's part of its storyline. That's taking something that popular culture has generated, or the success and the fanboys and all that stuff has generated, and reacting to it in a creative and interesting way. Disney, you should take note. JJ, take note. Mysterio, you're writing the script on it. Anyway, back to the good. Never seen that culture before. The colour and the music.
Called it El Dorado.
The music. This was the best sounding soundtrack. I've got to get this soundtrack. It's like the score was like classical. It was like Rocky was in there, you know. And of course, Creed was the previous film this creative team has done. In particular, the director Ryan Coogler, and apparently he's got 3 for 3. I haven't seen his other stuff, but you know, like Chadwick, he was stoic at first. I love his accent. I love the accent, and I think the teaser for the Avengers when he's giving his speech about and get that man a shield, like that is that's built him up. And that what I love about the storyline of this film is that it's a real archetype, like it's an archetype of the chosen one storyline. Like you see it in Matrix, you see it It reminded me of Lion King a lot as well. It might seem silly, but yeah, it's about a son who's inherited a kingdom, and the biggest kingdom, the most powerful kingdom. And I love the fact that it's African. I love the fact that it's like celebrating all of these beautiful cultural imagery that comes from that place.
Show me my respect and bow down.
It's like an escape from reality, which gets into the ugly side of things, which I'll... Ryan Coogler and the cast, Tessa Thompson, female characters were just incredible. His sister, who I think is the girl from Black Mirror, which suits because she's a real tech head. And seeing a tech head, a teenager existing in this Wakanda, the whole place felt real. There were shots where they were standing at windows and you can see the outside of the city, and it looked real. It looked exotic. It just makes you fucking wish that it was real. So, yeah, it's maybe there is a Wakanda. Anyway.
Presenting Miss Amani Aziz.
There was I love the opening scene had a 90s vibe. It's a black film, okay? It's unabashedly a black film, and for me, the top 5 black films, definitely 90s films, and I love the fact that it was opening in we got this grand place called Wakanda, but you got America, and you've got the streets of America, and you've got all the shit that's happening, and the throwaway line about Grace Jones, I just wish this was the first film to drop the F-bomb, because I mean, if you'd said, "Yo, Clarence, we got some Grace Jones motherfuckers." When I was a kid, I wish I was black. I would have loved if the King was recast as Wesley Snipes. Can you imagine Wesley Snipes? I was Eddie Murphy and Wesley Snipes fine. Anyone who riffed off Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy in my books, we grew up with Eddie Murphy, hilarious.
Then the kid took the fish out of his mouth and looked at his brother and said, "Goony google." What the fuck is going on?
And again, it comes back to the music. We had hip hop, we had strings, we had rocky strings, we had
It's all about. Let's have some fun.
The car chase scene in Korea was incredible. Again, involving really strong female leads. There was an ensemble lead. That's why the poster has so many faces on it. It wasn't just about Chad. The way they just kind of walk in, they've got the wigs on, they play to that. They look absolutely gorgeous. It was stronger to me than any of the shit that was in Wonder Woman. Sorry. Not because they were black, but because they were just fucking badass.
What a good man to be.
And, I always love it. I always love me a South African accent, and my shout out to Lawrence in South Africa. Anyone with a South African accent who wanders on screen is always has my attention.
I say potato, you say potato. Let's call the whole thing a thorough nice chap, and doesn't matter what race he is.
I love when he rocks up and he's got this big thick neck and this big huge fucking pineapple head. He reminds me so much of my mate Schwabby. Oh, most Australian bloke you'll ever meet. But just when he's sitting in these oh, I can see you, oh, what was he singing, that song? And he first walks in, he's got this huge, because he's Gollum. So we're seeing Gollum's face, the resemblance of Gollum's expressions, that, he should be in films as himself more often. He was fantastic. I loved him. I can see you. The scene where they bust into the museum was really, really good. And that brings us to Killmonger. So everyone's talking about him as being one of the best villains of, the best Marvel villain, yada yada. That's not too hard to do. He's the first one since Loki that I can, definitely relate to. Michael B. Jordan. He's solid. He's good, but he's not great. We'll get into that when we get into the bad. But in fact, let's get into the bad right now. Killmonger was a great character. He was the one. He was, of course, the character that it made sense what he said, and that's been spoken about. Of course, he should do, but his very nature was arrogant. He was like, he reminded me of kind of like Damon Wayans. Like, he was a Damon Wayans type of caricature of a young African American. I would have loved it if it was, I don't know, I just maybe think the casting, I don't know, maybe he would have made an even better Black Panther. I kind of wish his character lived on, because I would have liked to have had another character besides Black Panther who was an African American kid, or an African American. And because I honestly think the African Americans who are descendants of slaves in America who were taken from Africa have built a culture that has culturally inspired or set more trends than any other culture on the planet, and all against the I don't want to turn this into one of those kind of videos. So anyway, I just think that, you know, his character could have been harder. I think he could have been harder. I wish Black Panther growed up the Marvel Universe and allowed them to drop the F-bomb.
It's a motherfucking ridiculous, Gus.
Because I think swearing, it's foul on children to adults, but to other children, it's just another fucking way of speaking. And so it's all about language. And you know, there's a whole bunch of arguments we can get into in terms of censorship and stuff like that. But a well-placed fuck every now and then, in all senses of the word, does more positive than negative. Back from my ivory tower. The CGI was amazing, the setting, but again, we can't animate human bodies falling in the sky and like getting entangled in battles and make it look any good. Some scenes were pardon the pun, very black, like dark, as in we couldn't see much. Low-key lighting. That's the correct expression is here. See, it's all about language. Yeah, the cliffs around the fight scenes, they literally look like Mortal Kombat background. You know, characters just kind of watching. You know, I love that they landed in the Mortal Kombat pit at the bottom with the uranium around them. It was such an epic build-up, the whole battle and the climax, and shout out to the other character with the rhinoceros, although of course rhinoceros looks nothing like these rhinoceri were like dinosaurs, whatever. But anyway, the CGI in parts still, I forgave it though. I was enjoying it too much to care. I actually literally sat there and said, oh, maybe that's the style that they're kind of going for, this maybe 90s kind of awesome CGI, but with patches of giving them way too much credit. But it didn't bother me that much. You know, like, this is a great film. I've got not much to say in terms of the bad. You know, like, Coogler could have, for someone who directed Creed or one of the Rocky films, he could have delivered with the fight scene. Like, the fight scene at the end was being intercut to. And I like that the train passed by and they had that kind of, you know, like a Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader moment where they could exchange some dialogue. You know, like, if you think of the build-up of that climax, like, there was interjections, and the interjections were the things that made the climaxes even better. Without giving too much away, the way the fight scene ended was a little bit meh. These are the little things that kept me from actually giving it quite a handsome score. Obviously, there's a lot of resonance about this movie in reality. Big question on my mind is, what do we do as a human species? Do we celebrate diversity, or do we embrace oneness? It's like you got two sides of like a positive pathway here. One means that we proudly call this a black film and say culture represented in this film is awesome. It's not my culture, but it's their culture, and there is an us and there is a them, as there is for them another, and celebrate it and enjoy it. Treat it like a brother. And you know, with brothers and sisters, you fuck up sometimes. You know, you call things the wrong way. You know, if the intention from within is from a place of love and respect, then who cares? However, you got other people who they take a scientific kind of reptile brain to it. They're like, well, if what we should do is accept them as and know them as just oneness, that is just one. And spiritually, that sounds very nice. If we're all one, and we don't call this a black film, we just call it a film. But it's the differences in it, the diversity in it, is that my respect for, as an outsider, as a Australian white or brown male, looking at it as a racial film and loving it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What do we do? Do we just treat all as one, and forget about forget about diversity, or do we celebrate the fact that we are different? I guess if there's a way in the middle, so be it. It's not so much the ugly, but it's more the reality of it, I guess. I love how it touches on all the shit that's happening, and it's not just to African Americans or Africans. It's also, dark-skinned our brothers here in Australia. So it's sad. So that's the ugly side to it. But I think ultimately it's a fantastic film. It's solidly written. It's beautiful. Sound and music are incredible. The acting is solid. The ensemble cast is great. The action sequences actually feel like action sequences. Coogler's camera work in the fight scenes leading up to the car chase scene are just incredible. And Claw is fantastic and hilarious. And it's not perfect, but if it had 0.5 things going its way more, in that it had a solid, like just a slightly better or stronger performance for the character that he was written for in the Killmonger, and if the CGI was just a little bit better, and the fight scene at the end was just a little bit better, it would have been in my top 10. It would have been 10 out of 10, but because of those tiny little chinks, I have to drop it down to, we'll see how this changes down the track, but I'm going to give it an 8.5. 8.5 out of 10.
Alexandra, of course. On the Pilgrim Trail from Eastern Empire. Oh. Junior, you did it.
That was, what time is it? Holy shit, I'm late for work. Okay, look, that took way too much time.